Hello, Cardinals fans. It is Sunday, May 5th. And since it is a Sunday night, we are back here with the 2024 STL Cards Season Scrapbook Edition of Peace, Love, and Baseball. I am your host, Burd Tweets. If you are not following me on Twitter, hit me up there for all of your daily, hourly, Cardinals content one way or another, because I know it might not be a day that you are feeling particularly inspired and excited to talk about this St. Louis Cardinals team, but I'm here with you and we're going to talk about them anyway and break it all down from the fifth full week of the Major League Baseball season in 2024, this week 5, Monday, April 29th through Sunday, May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo to you all. If you have yet to enjoy some tequila after this Cardinals game on Sunday, May 5th, I would highly encourage it. If you enjoy it and you enjoy it responsibly, I will be making myself a nice fresh margarita. I actually meant to do that before this. Could have been a little more fun, but cheers. I'm going to hit up my second round of tacos for the day and make myself a nice fresh margarita. But first, let's talk about this week in St. Louis Cardinals baseball. Yeah, the Cardinals dropped both series this week against the American League Central teams. They went 1-3 versus the Tigers in Detroit and 1-3 versus the White Sox at Busch Stadium. Yes, you did hear that correctly. We dropped the series to the Chicago White Sox. They currently sit 4 games under 500 at 15-19, which is good for last place in the National League Central Division. Now, personally, I don't look at the standings until after Memorial Day, so this is actually the first time I've mentioned even where they're at in the standings during one of these episodes. But I'm just feeling that kind of down and out, maybe for the first time this season, particularly after the White Sox series. But there's still a lot to look back on, to take away that's positive from this week. So we're going to hit it all. We started the week with a rain out on Monday, April 29th, and maybe that was the sign that it was all downhill mostly from there. But fortunately, game 1 of Tuesday's doubleheader in Detroit started with what I thought was a very entertaining baseball game. Now, I am a pitcher's duel kind of gal, so I loved this game. I also like to see former Cardinals succeed because emotionally I am already invested in them and their success. And I'm just not one of those people that, you know, doesn't want to see Randy Arozarena succeed because he's not a Cardinal anymore. Still love Tyler O'Neill. Still love me some Jack Flaherty. Love him or hate him, I love him. And I love to see him have success wherever he's going to be next. So game 1 brought us Jack Flaherty versus the St. Louis Cardinals for the first time ever in his career versus our Kyle Gibson. Jack Flaherty struck out a career high 14 batters to show off against his former team. Flaherty went 6 2/3 innings, allowing just 2 hits and 1 walk. Lucky for us, though, the Jack Flaherty outing was even more sweet because Kyle freaking Gibson went 7 innings on 98 pitches. He allowed just 4 hits, 1 earned run, which was on a Riley Green home run. He walked 2 and struck out 9. Yeah, who knew that Kyle Gibson could hold it up there against Jack Flaherty 2019, circa 2019. That's what he did. The Cardinals were off the board until the 9th inning in this game, when Alec Burleson came in clutch to drive in Nolan Arenado. He moved Goldie to third and tied the game. Pedro Pajes gets a big opportunity here. He collects his first big league RBI on a sacrifice fly to score Paul Goldschmidt, and the Cardinals take the lead in the 9th inning, 2-1. It's time to ring the bells, baby. Ring the bells of Hells, because in comes Ryan Helsley to close it out. He strikes out 2 and saves the game on just 10 pitches. Ryan Helsley still to this day has pitched in every one of the 15 games that the St. Louis Cardinals have won. I think that's cool. One of these days, I hope we can break it because we don't need him to win a game, but it is cool. And it's cool that he was named a National League Reliever of the Month for the first month of the baseball season. That is the first time that a Cardinals player has been named Reliever of the Month in quite some time. I think since like 2011 or something. I should have made note of that, but It's been quite some time. So cool to see Helsley get that much deserved nod from Major League Baseball. Game 2 of the doubleheader on Tuesday, not as fun is what I wrote down here. Not as fun. The Tigers got to Steven Matz early on, as we later found out he was working through a back injury. He went just 3 1/3, allowing 7 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, and a strikeout before we saw Kyle Leahy come in as the 27th man that was added to the doubleheader roster to ultimately bail him out. Brendan Donovan, a known power hitter, he got the Cardinals on the board with his 3rd home run of the year in the 5th inning, along with a big-ass 3-run Burley bomb. Oh, I loved that. That was a highlight for me this week with Arenado and Goldie on base. So the Cardinals actually did have the lead in this game. I know you're like, it was not fun. It was fun for a second. Don't forget. They did have the lead in this game for a hot second. It was 5-4 in the bottom of the 5th. Leahy ultimately gave up 2 hits and 2 runs in his inning and a third of work. He passed the ball to Ryan Fernandez, who would give up a home run for a run in his inning and a third. Burley is a fighter of Tigers, though, and he singles to drive in Lars Nootbaar in the 7th. But Riley Green is back to hit another home run off of Giovanni Gallegos, and it did not stop there for Gio. He gave up a total of 4 earned runs on 2 hits and 2 walks without recording an out. No, we are not talking about today's game yet, is the bad news. Is the worst news, actually. But Nick Robertson would come in to finish up the game for the Cardinals. He did pitch 2 scoreless innings. He allowed 2 hits and struck out 3. Nicely done, Nick. Despite a multi-hit game from Donovan, Goldie had 4 hits in this second game of the doubleheader, and Burleson, who had 4 RBIs in this game. The ragtag pitching allowed the Tigers to run away with an 11-6 Cardinals, big old Cardinals L for game 2 of the doubleheader. Isn't it weird? We saw, some of the most offense in that game, and we could not pull out a win. It's just part of this roller coaster that we're on. Wednesday, May 1st, the Cardinals and the Tigers turn around to play game 3 of their series, so to complete 3 full games of baseball in just 27 hours. Whew. But when it came down to it, the Tigers would take advantage. Miles Mikolas got out there for 6 innings. He allowed 6 hits, 3 runs, 0 walks, which we love. We love that about Mikolas, and 4 strikeouts. Again, we saw the Cardinals offense go cold against Kenta Maeda, with the only run of the game coming on a Wilson Contreras home run in the 4th. Once again, I am not talking about today's game. I'm talking about another game earlier in the week that also had the only run of the game on a Wilson Contreras home run. Nootbaar, Arenado, Burley, Fermin all collected hits, along with a 2-hit day for Michael Ciani. Hello, I see you, Ciani. But only 3 men ever got in a scoring position this entire game, and the Cardinals left 5 men on base. We saw Matthew Liberatore pitch a scoreless inning in this game. It was not Jojo Romero's best day. He did give up 2 hits and a run in his inning of work to amount to a 4-1 Cardinals series loss to the Tigers. Thursday, we get a day off. We're back in St. Louis. Something very notable did happen on this day. There was a Pooches in the Park photo shoot, and we saw some really great social media content of puppies with pitchers and other pitchers or other players as well. I have to take note of that because it's a highlight of the season for me. I don't think there could be like a piece of content that is more geared towards me than baseball players with rescue dogs. Like that is it. I think the only way that could have been more geared towards me is if Tommy Edman was there and he was singing show tunes. And then that literally would have been a piece of content created exclusively for me. If you'd be into that, hop in the chat. You let me know. But I absolutely loved that. And when are the Cardinals gonna come out with a Cardinals and Rescue Dogs calendar? Like a Cardinals players and Rescue Dogs calendar. I need it. Take my money. Make it. Put it out there. How can I be a part of this? All right. We get back to playing the game on Friday, May 3rd, which is Pooches in the Park Day. Very important. Not sure if you saw it, but my favorite pooch in the park that I saw was a dog, maybe like a chocolate lab. I don't know. I think it was more of like a hound dog, but there was a really beautiful dog who was dressed as a Clydesdale. One of my favorite Clydesdale commercials ever, of like the Budweiser Clydesdale commercials, is when there's a donkey who wants to be a Clydesdale. Super cute. I'm going to link it in the show notes when we're done with the live here, because if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. It's from a while ago. It'll make you smile. And then there was like a whole chain of ones that came after that, of where there was like a pig trying to be a Clydesdale. Freaking adorable. So good. Loved it, Anheuser-Busch. But this reminded me of that, with this sweet little dog who had like the braided mane put on him or her, and the little white tufts of fur around its legs. Oh my gosh, it was so precious. Winner of Pooches in the Park Day for sure. And Budweiser and I have had a little back and forth on social media. I am interested to see if there is a tie to the Clydesdales specifically in the City Connects. So we're going to stay all over that. Our eyes are peeled, okay? I do have a little inside scoop that maybe we're onto something there. So for better or for worse, the Clydesdales might be a part of the City Connects. Anyway, Friday, May 3rd, Pooches in the Park, sunny gray day versus the White Sox at home. What could go wrong? Not much, fortunately. Gray goes 7 innings, allowing 2 hits, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts. Earned runs, none, 0. Don't even need to talk about it. His ERA is now down to 0.89. Yeah, the Cardinals scored early in the bottom of the first, courtesy of an Arenado double to get out to an early 2-0 lead for Gray, who shared with us post-game that he did a little costume change. Did a little costume change after the 3rd inning to reset. And I thought that was so cool that he shared it. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, but I saw it. Like, you can watch back that game. He definitely was like not feeling himself in those first couple of innings, and there was a clear adjustment that was made, and it's just really cool that we got to see kind of behind the scenes of what that looked like and what that felt like for him. Wilson Contreras had his first 3-hit game of the season, and Nolan Arenado had his second double of the day to drive in Wilson to tack on the 3rd run in the 5th. Michael Ciani picked up the only other Cardinals hit on this day. Wynn and Contreras also thieved a base apiece. We love to see it. And Romero and Helsley had their scoreless inning stuff for the Cardinals to win it 3-0 over the White Sox. That is all she wrote of winning baseball for the rest of the week, but we are going to talk about it. We're going to get through this together. Stick with me. Saturday, May 4th. Can we talk about how, like, there were a lot of other teams that did this, like they did a Star Wars giveaway yesterday. The Cardinals were advertising their Star Wars Day that's happening in June. Why don't they just do it on May 4th? They did Pooches in the Park. I know they didn't want to, like, oh, I'm just realizing Saturday was actually Pooches in the Park Day. I got ahead of myself. Well, whatever. We already talked about Pooches in the Park Day. This is not fake news. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be spreading misinformation. Pooches in the Park Day was actually Saturday, May 4th. It was on Lance Lynn Day, that old dog. He was out there with all the other dogs. But since we already covered Pooches in the Park, let's get down to this Lance Lynn start. I was really hoping, especially after the Flaherty dominance against his former team that we witnessed earlier in the week, that Lance Lynn would dominate over his former team. But not his best start of the season. Lynn went 5 innings. He allowed 4 hits, 5 runs. 4 of them were earned, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. The Cardinals trailed until the 5th inning of this game when Brendan Donovan doubled to drive in Nolan Gorman and Michael Ciani, and he paved the way for that sweet, sweet 3-run Nolan Arenado bomb to center field to score Brendan Donovan and Wilson Contreras. The Cardinals enjoyed another very brief lead, 5-3, before the White Sox knocked Lynn out for good by the top of the 6th, and they tied the game at 5. The relief corps of Kittredge, Romero, and Helsley kept the White Sox scoreless and into extra innings. Yeah, you know where this is going, right? How brutal that this was just yesterday. It feels like a lifetime ago from what we've been through. But top 10th inning here. Tommy Pham, former Cardinal. Yeah, makes it just that much more brutal. He gets an RBI single to break the tie and pull the White Sox ahead 6-5 against Ryan Fernandez, who is out there in relief at this point. The Cardinals were down to their very last strike against former Cardinal John Brebbia, who who doesn't love John Brebbia? What a guy. When at this point, a rain delay could not have been avoided. Now, we could talk forever about how annoying that whole situation was. I think they were clearly trying to just finish the game and get it over with because it was pretty clear that the White Sox were probably going to win. But the Cardinals had people on base. The bases were loaded. Of course, the White Sox were going to win. We knew what was going to happen, didn't we? It felt that way. And I hated that. But yeah, ultimately, they should have called the game at least a whole batter earlier than they did. And we went into a 3-hour rain delay that started up again for a whole, I think it was like just over 2 minutes of baseball, 4 whole pitches, just so that Ivan Herrera could be called out on strikes on a ball that was objectively a good foot outside of the zone. Maybe not that much, but visible inches. You know what I'm talking about. Out of the zone by Ollie Marmol's old pal, CB Buckner, who was clearly just, ready. I don't blame him. He was ready to curl up with a book and a bud after a long day. I get it. But CB, you got to do your freaking job. And that, I'm interested to see if more of the national media covers it as they recap after the weekend here, but that was really rough. I had Sox fans who were like backing me up, seeing like, that's just not the way I want to see my team win. Even like, of course, I'm glad they won, but I don't want to see them win on a bad call. Y'all, we had Cubs fans. Who were backing us up and saying like, what the hell is this? I think the Cubs fans definitely like hate the Cardinals more than they hate the White Sox. They don't really care about the White Sox. So that meant a lot, that they were here to back us up, and a bad call is a bad call. And what we all want to see more than anything is good, fair baseball. And that sucked. But the Cardinals play also sucked during that game. They had plenty of freaking opportunities and they let them pass them by over and over again. So that for me was why I was like less salty about it, because like I said, the writing was kind of on the wall anyway, but it just seemed like such a waste of time and energy and just not the way that you want to see any game end. And especially with all of the shit that we've just been seeing from umpires in general and the lack of consistency. I don't have a solution for it. I don't know. You can throw it in the chat or the comments if you're like, are you for the automated strike zone? Do you want to see the challenge system? I went to a minor league game, a AAA game recently about a month ago, and saw that they got to challenge the balls and strikes, and that worked really well. They have it down to a science where it's very efficient and the fans get super into it too. So I think that's cool. And I think that's something that maybe, the automated strike zone is not quite here yet, but we could see that challenge system sooner rather than later. Let me know what you think. We got to talk about today's game. I know maybe you've yet to even emotionally recover from it. So let's just get it out here. Steven Matz is officially on the injured list for what sounds like a kind of a bulging disc issue in his back. Not so great. So Matthew Liberatore gets the short start, which, man, I could like stand on the greatest soapbox here for Matthew Liberatore. I know a lot of people were not excited to see him get the start today. The only reason I was not excited is because like he's not on proper rest. He's not been stretched out. Like this guy, in my opinion, from my viewpoint, has been mismanaged by this team overall. And it's really hard to say. He's still only 24 years old, of like where he could ultimately find success and what could be brought out of him based on how they've utilized him. And I hate to say that because I want to have faith in my organization as much as I can. I'd rather not be critical of that, but he is one of those players that I just have a really hard time being critical of, because I think the circumstances are dictating a lot of what we see out of him, especially in these scenarios. But he did handle himself well. He went 3 2/3, giving up 3 hits, 1 run, and striking out 5. He did his freaking job. Give it up for Libby. Kyle Leahy replaces Matt's on the roster, and he followed up with a job well done in his 2 1/3 innings, scoreless with 2 strikeouts. Here we go again. Wilson Contreras hitting that solo home run to center field in the 4th, the same way he did earlier in the week. He's going to tie the game at 1. Unfortunately, one of the only available arms out of the bullpen today was Giovanni Gallegos, who had a all too similar outing to his last. He gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, including a home run, without recording an out for the second time in this week. It's been a rough one for Gio. I don't know what's going on there. I have been skeptical, to say the least, of Gio longer than most fans have. Like, he makes my heart beat too fast, and he has for a long time now. So even when he was more solid overall, I still, I don't know. I'm just not that surprised by this, I guess is what I'm saying. But John King would come in for an inning and 2/3. This was his first big league game appearance in almost a month. John King. He gave up 3 hits and another run along with 3 strikeouts to top off the White Sox 5-run day. Want to give another shout out, though, to Nick Robertson, who, again, for the second time this week, he did a nice job in his inning and a third with 2 strikeouts. So, again, there's always those bright spots. Take a look at it. Nick Robertson, I see you. We did see the return as well of Dylan Carlson from his injured list stint. He started in center field today. But unfortunately, the Cardinals could not even a little golf clap of any offense whatsoever. Nope, no clapback at all. They gave the series up to the White Sox, losing this one 5-1. I know this one hurts, Cardinals fans. It does. It hurts a little differently because the White Sox have won only 8 games this season, and 2 of them were against the Cardinals in the last couple of days. So that means 25% of their wins this season came in the past 2 days against the St. Louis Cardinals. What's particularly troubling is that even in this bullpen game, the pitching was not particularly what I would say held the Cardinals back from staying in this game. I mean, they couldn't score more than 1 run. Which brings me to a few points that I want to talk about before we get into our scrapbook moment of the week. So don't worry, we're gonna turn the corner here again. We're gonna pick out a beautiful moment to put in the scrapbook for the week. We're gonna get to Bird's Bird of the week. We're gonna get to the vibe check, very important. But I do want to point out these trends that are a little troubling for this week that I think tell the overarching story of what we're seeing. The Cardinals have scored 2 or fewer runs in 11 games so far this season. They are 1-10 in those games. The win was in the Flaherty-Gibson game this week. 2 or fewer runs. So runs per game, they sit at 3.55. That is only better than the Blue Jays and the White Sox for runs per game. I believe that. I'm honestly surprised that it's not worse, that they're not dead last. Like this reads, right? I'm not surprising you. Their batting average as a team is .217. That is tied with the Oakland A's, who are playing .500 baseball, by the way, as we all expected. And it is only better than the Cincinnati Reds and the White Sox. Even their on-base percentage is a 25th best in the league at .299. They are ahead of only the Rockies, the Reds, the A's, the Marlins, and the White Sox. Not great. Not great. And we talked a lot last week about how the offense is, there's a clear problem on one side of the ball here. It's just so odd and confusing that it's not on the side of the ball that we were predicting that there could potentially be some issues with. And it's even more frustrating, I think, because of that, because these pitchers who we weren't like super thrilled about, like Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson specifically, are doing their freaking job. And the bullpen is nails. Like they are in it. They're locked in. And we're missing out in a way that I have no sense around it. And I think there's a lot of anger and fingers pointed and fire this guy, do this, do that, because it's just it's very confusing. It does seem that there is something internally, like structurally from the franchise that is off, because the only guy who's like not really having any sort of a problem right now is Wilson Contreras. And he's our catcher. So again, just as we wrote it up, that's what we love about baseball, right? Never know what you're going to get. Let's move on to the scrapbook moment of the week, because we know despite win or losing record, despite series losses or whatever, there is going to be a highlight that we want to cut out. We want to put some heart stickers around it. We want to just snapshot it and save it for the scrapbook. And we're going to look back on this season and remember this moment forever. I put out a poll to y'all on Twitter to kind of get your feedback too and help me pick the scrapbook moment of the week, because we talked about that dog dressed as a Clydesdale. That was a highlight. I'm going to remember that. Alec Burleson is breaking out offensively. I think he's a guy we could probably highlight here. He had some good moments as well. But this week's scrapbook moment of the week was the moment that we actually were not even aware of it happening until the post game, when Sonny Gray, a true ray of sunshine in otherwise dark and uncertain times, he opened up about how he was able to reset after feeling he was off to an uneasy start through the first 3 innings of the game on Friday, May 3rd. Sonny talked about how he came into the clubhouse and he completely undressed and redressed to give himself a fresh start. If you haven't seen this post-game interview, I'll link it in the show notes. Check it out. But the response from fans was so fun to see the openness in his mindset and how this isn't the first time that he's done something like this. And it was just very cool for him to let the fans in on that. I think that is something that grows the game and adds so much value to us as a fan base, that it's important to call these moments out. The Cardinals fan base has such a deep appreciation for not only his talent level, I mean, obviously, it speaks for itself, his work ethic, his mindset, and the attitude of Sonny Gray, just everything that he brings to the table as a complete player and a teammate. And he is the kind of player that St. Louis fans have been begging for. A literal ray of sunshine for this team and its fan base. So we're going to put it in the scrapbook. Sonny Gray out there in a fresh pair of undies. We love to see it. Thank you, Sonny, for that moment of light in these dark, I shouldn't say dark times, because y'all, we're still way better off than we were Sunday or on a May 5th, 2023. Okay. So let's keep celebrating the things that are worth celebrating. Bird's Bird of the Week. Every week we are going to highlight one of these birds who just deserves a little call out. And sometimes it's more obvious than others. Sometimes like somebody just has a big week. But this is a guy who I appreciate on so many levels. And in times like this, you got to appreciate him even more. This week's Bird's Bird of the Week is my catcher, Wilson Contreras. Wilson Contreras leads the team in home runs, runs scored, doubles. He is second in hits behind just Nolan Arenado. He has the most walks on the team as well. I mean, makes sense. He's the only one who's freaking hitting, right? But he has the most walks. He has 18 walks, 3 more than Paul Goldschmidt, who is second. He has the subsequently best on-base percentage and slugging percentage, along with an OPS by a lot. His on base is 398. He's slugging 539, good for a 937 OPS. If you're not a stats guy or gal or person, 750 is league average. And every other St. Louis Cardinals player is currently has an OPS under 750. So that his is 937. Every other St. Louis Cardinals player has an OPS of under 750 on the 2024 season. His weighted on base average, as well as his expected, his ex-WOBA, his expected weighted on base average, are in the top 9% of the entire league. So yeah, you're like, yeah, Kelsey, of course he's the best on the Cardinals offense. That doesn't say much. It does. His max exit velocity is in the top 4% of the league. And in fact, it has been like the majority of his career. So that's cool to see. He's keeping up with that, not backing off at all. And his walk percentage this season is in the top 6% of the league. Defensively, we have heard a lot about the strides that he has clearly made, the adjustments that he's made to be a big contributor to the success that the pitchers are having so far this season. And hey, they all give him big credit in their post-game interviews. Speaking of post-game interviews, who gives a better post-game interview than Wilson Contreras? I tweeted earlier this week because I truly believe that we are sleeping on Wilson's post-player career in the media. Like, he just gives very thoughtful post-game interviews all the time. I mean, his energy, his vibes, so on point. Absolutely love it. And that helps. Like, his level of comfortability is a big part of it. But I have never heard him like phone it in or give a canned answer. And that's just, again, like, to grow the game. And as a fan who wants more fans to get more into the game, like, these are the guys that we need to hear from. And he just does such a great job with it. He gives great credit to all the players around him and helps give insights into the kind of conversations and the team building stuff that's happening. And that's really cool. I really appreciate that about him. And I got to call him out this week. Bird's Bird of the Week. I'm sure it won't be the last time this season. Wilson Contreras. I salute you, sir. Okay, we are going to wrap up tonight with the official vibe check for the St. Louis Cardinals. This is the only official vibe check that I'm aware of in Major League Baseball. Vibes, X vibes. We're figuring out a way to create more of an objective vibe scale, but right now, the way we've got more people tuning in just for the vibe check. I know it's working. Yes, here I am. I'm here for you. This is the thing I'm dialed in on more than anything. Oh man, I wish I wasn't dialed in here, but it's where it's at. So I'm going to be straight with you. I'm a very positive fan overall, but I am going to be straight with you about the vibe check. I posted today during that inning, the 7th inning, I believe, when Gio was giving up all the runs and not getting outs against the White Sox, a chart of the X vibes for the Cardinals, and it was just an arrow going straight down because unfortunately this was the moment that, last week we talked about the vibes being like rising from the ashes vibes. Felt like things were, we're fighting through it. We're trying to dust some shit off, but we're getting there. This was kind of, I don't want to say like nosedive is a little dramatic. I want to be dramatic, but my vibe check for this week, the phrase that I'm going to give to you is that we're stuck in the mud. Man, we're stuck. It just feels like I literally wrote, IDK, what is the problem? What is the issue? How do we uncover and unlock whatever is holding this team back at the plate? Because you can't hone in on one or two guys. You can't say like until Goldie goes. And like we've seen sides of life. Nolan Arenado, most hits on the team. Like, dude's doing it at times. There's not one or two pieces. And that, unfortunately, is very similar to last season, of where even when we were pointing fingers at the pitching staff and all of the things that just completely unraveled there, the offense was not making a case for it. Whereas like now, it's more frustrating in some ways because the pitching staff is doing it, man. Like, they're doing their job. And you want to look at Mozeliak and be like, you did the thing. It's working. But the offense, which we just did not anticipate, and I am very genuinely confused at where the disconnect is at, and whether it's, like, the lack of consistency in the lineup, whether it is some sort of fundamental approach. You have to think that it tracks back to that. So, if I would love to hear more insights on this other than, like, don't tell me fire someone, don't tell me make a huge change, like, maybe those things need to happen, but let's have, like, a more dynamic conversation about it, right? Like, what could the actual issues be? Do you have more of like a black and white or even a more nuanced suggestion for this team of how they break out of this? Because it's such a bummer. We love these guys. We love these players and there's so much potential and they want it. They're showing up. I say they're stuck in the mud because they're fighting through it. Like there's not that lack of fire in the team that I think we saw at certain points last season, but there is still like this just like they're hunkered down and not moving forward and something is stopping them from reaching not even max potential but like the like base level of potential that we expect when you have Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Lars Newbar. Like, come on. There shouldn't be this kind of frustration. And it's not that the talent isn't there, but something is keeping these guys stuck in the mud. So that is the vibe check for this week on the STL Cards 2024 season scrapbook week 5 edition. I'll be here for you next week. So if you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You got a new episode, your weekly episode of Peace, Love, and Baseball coming at you on Tuesday, as always. Got a good team feature for you. But every Sunday, 7 p.m. Central, thereabout, we're going to be here live. The chat is always open, and then it's in your podcast feed, so you can follow along on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you get your music, or wherever you get your music and your podcast, Hopefully we're there, and just make sure you're subscribed, and this will populate in your feed. You can get the rundown of everything that you missed from runs, hits, how the pitchers did, all that good stuff, as well as get dialed in on the vibes, because that's really my area of expertise. That's the only thing I'm going to pretend that I have a professional read on, clearly. No, but I'm just here to talk about it and keep talking about it, even when we have these frustrating series and weeks, because I love baseball and I love the St. Louis Cardinals and I love the opportunity to connect on it with anyone and everyone who wants to be a part of that conversation. So thanks for hanging out. Make sure you're following along, and I will see you next Sunday night on the STL Cards season scrapbook edition of Peace, Love, and Baseball. Have a good one, guys.